Have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Curry, way downtown. Bang! Bang! Oh, what a shot from...
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Scotty Talks NBA. I'm your host at Scotty Drown. That's where you can find me on all social media platforms. As you can see, I am accompanied by a very special guest, my good friend, Sean Barnard. You can find him on Twitter at Sean_Barnard1. He is the founder of Pick Swap Media, so be sure to head over there and give them a follow as well. The content's great, man. Love what you do there. Sean, I'm going to give you some time to plug yourself here shortly. I do just want to let everybody know out there, this is going to be a two-part episode. So we're going to start with the interview with Sean, talk heavy Sixers. Then in the second part of the episode, we will get to best bets, updated power rankings, the normal thing we do on Fridays. But Sean, thank you for that. Welcome to the show. Before we get started here, man, I just want to give you time to plug yourself some more. Let my viewers know exactly what you got going on right now, my man.
Yeah, appreciate the kind words, Scotty. Always great to be back on here chatting it up. And yeah, you can check out Pick Swap Media for all my own podcast stuff. Got a couple other things coming out, some NCAA tournament stuff, some college or NFL draft breakdown, some college film analysis, that kind of stuff going on there. So you can check that out on YouTube. Follow me on Twitter at Sean_Bernard1. Got my written content on Philly Sports Network for Sixers stuff, as well as for Sportskeeda. I've been doing a bunch of NCAA tournament stuff. So that stuff is keeping me busy as well.
Busy man. It's a lot, but hey, I'll tell you guys right now, it's worth it. If you've seen Sean on my shows before, you know it's worth it because my man brings the heat, and I love what you do, Sean. But thanks once again for joining. We're going to talk Sixers, man, and we're going to start right at the top with Doc Rivers because, I saw some things last night that I was semi-impressed with after, we had a lot of people questioning him and management about, the way they ran James Harden on Monday night for 47 minutes on a sore Achilles now that we've heard about. But nonetheless, I thought Doc Rivers bounced back nicely Wednesday. Was it Tuesday? No, Wednesday. It was Wednesday. I'm getting confused on my days here. It was last night, nonetheless. You saw Doc Rivers start the game with a little bit of full court pressure. It was light pressure, right? But I thought that was interesting given the fact that the Bulls don't really have a real point guard with no Lonzo Ball. And then also just the willingness, maybe it was the calf tightness, right, with Joel Embiid, but sitting him for a whole half, not worrying about that score too much. I thought that was the right decision as well. What are your thoughts on Doc Rivers this season as a whole? Has he met your expectations as far as what we've seen so far this season? What are your thoughts on Doc?
Yeah, I've been impressed with Doc Rivers this year, and I know he's not the most popular guy amongst Sixers fans or Sixers Twitter or whatever, but this year I do think he's done a pretty good job. It's been a season where he's had a vision and kind of stuck to it. If you think back to those clips coming out of training camp where he's talking to James Harden about got to get Joel and get the pecking order in line, and once it clicks where they can get on the same page, they're unstoppable. And that's kind of what we've seen in recent weeks. And it's taken a season. They're taking a whole season to get there. There were obviously the breaks of James Harden missing time with his injury, Joel Embiid missing time with his. There hasn't been the complete picture the whole time. But now that it's kind of hitting crunch time, and especially over this past 12-game stretch where Joel has just played, I would argue, the best basketball of his entire Sixers career, which has been terrific to watch. This team really has been unguardable. They have the best offensive rating of any team in the NBA post All-Star break. They're clicking. They have this simplistic just style of offense that works. It's like if you double Embiid here, the ball goes here. We have a corner three-pointer. We're going to run the pick and roll with James Harden. If you double to James Harden, the ball is going to Joel. He's scoring. If you go to Joel, James Harden's taking a guy one-on-one. It's kind of so simple when you break it down, but that's all that needs to happen. And I've also been impressed with kind of more adaptability as far as staggering the James Harden Joel minutes. That's happening more of late, which wasn't the case in the beginning of the year. He seems to actually be riding with Paul Reed, which has been one of the biggest sources of frustration. And I've been happy with Doc this year. We're coming down to crunch time. Playoffs will be the make or break where his kind of skeletons in the closet show face a little bit. But overall, I'm very thrilled with what I've seen this year, and he's exceeded my expectations.
All great points there, man. And I think it leads me to kind of my follow-up question to that. But what I will say, just what you said about how simplistic the offense is, that really hits home, because I think that's the reason I'm so confident in this team as we approach the playoffs, is because it's not some complex offense that we're running, right? you're going to have to make some decisions as a defense on what you're going to give, what you're going to take away from the Sixers.
Yeah.
And they have an answer for everything that you can take away. They can give you, you're giving something else to them, right?
Right.
Especially with the depth that they've added to this roster. I mean, it's apparent, right, with guys like D-Mel. But it leads me to my next question. You kind of hinted at it with the skeletons in the closet. How confident are you in Doc Rivers making the right decisions once we get to the playoffs?
Yeah, it's tough. This is a Sixers team that I feel like they have all the pieces, they have a bunch of kind of niche guys that, like, you look at a Georges Niang who can come in and hit shots, but is incredibly limited defensively. They have obviously trading Matisse Thybulle for Jalen McDaniels.
Yeah.
I think that is an upgrade and a great piece, a guy who's a little more balanced, can do things on both sides of the floor, but he's also not a guy that's perfect for every single matchup.
Yeah.
So I feel like they have a lot of guys that can fit in the right moments. And it's now on the shoulders of Doc Rivers to make sure he's playing those for the right moment. So overall, I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. I've been happy this year. There's definitely some concerns and in the back of my head, some worries, but I do think he has the tools, the pieces around him. It's on him to pull the strings, and that's going to be very much the make or break for how the season ends up.
I think that's once again another great point there, because he has all the pieces on the table, right? There's nothing really that's missing, especially adding Jalen McDaniels. That adds that athletic wing factor, right? That we've been searching for, 3-and-D, right? And the fact that he's willing to shoot the 3-pointer, not only willing, but he does shoot fairly well, right? It's no worse than Matisse Thybulle, and he gives you more in other areas of the offense as well as the length on defense. So Doc has all the pieces. What is he going to do with them, right? Is he going to hit the right buttons at the right time, which of late he's been doing that, especially reinserting like Daniel House back into the lineup. That kind of brings me, to my next point, and it kind of tails off from the Doc Rivers aspect, but as you look at this rotation, and we're going to get to the stars, don't worry. As we look at this rotation, who are some of the guys that have solidified a spot in that rotation as we approach the playoffs? We're talking about guys like Shake, House, Georges Niang, Paul Reed, I think has solidified himself in there. Jalen McDaniels, another guy. Who do you think has really solidified their role in that rotation, if you had to guess?
Yeah, so naturally we're going to kind of see the rotation cut down a little as those cuts are made for playoffs. So obviously there's the starting five that we've seen with Maxey, Harden, Embiid, PJ Tucker, and Tobias. Then DeAnthony Melton's the natural kind of six-man there. Him and Maxey are almost interchangeable as far as how they play. And just I love that they get along so well, by the way. Like, this is very well kind of they more or less have kind of benched each other throughout the season. So cool that they're like on the same page. You always see them joking around on interviews, stuff like that. So that's great to see. Both awesome people too. So but those are kind of the top six there. When you look beyond that, I do think Paul Reed has the backup center position under wraps, unless he gets himself in too much of foul issues, and Doc has a problem with that. I also am I think that's super overstated how it's an issue. To me, like, the best case scenario for Paul Reed is you're playing like 12 minutes. If you want to use your 6 fouls in 12 minutes, be my guest, man. Like, that's
exactly. Just don't give up free buckets, right? Or give up and ones. Foul. If you're going to foul, make it mean it.
Right. Yeah. There's definitely a context to when he uses those fouls. But overall, if foul issues are the biggest negative for Paul Reed, you'll live with that. Looking beyond that, kind of how I mentioned, there's a lot of guys that it depends. I do think Jalen McDaniels is an every night kind of player. I don't think they would have traded for him if they didn't believe that. And he's shown it. He's battling a little hip issue right now, so hasn't been really himself. But I think come crunch time, he is going to be that eighth man off the bench. I do think Daniel House might get a little run, which is crazy because he was completely out of the rotation for most of this year. He's a bizarre player. He is.
I think you said something around like he's just pure chaos on the court, and like it's so true, man.
Yeah. He's all step back threes and trying to dunk on people as hard as humanly possible, which, there are worse combos, I guess. He is like an athletic. He's a good shooter. He's a bizarre player. He is chaos. He is madness, but at times it works. And I think he kind of has played himself into a role. Georges Niang, his shooting is just good enough that they're going to find minutes for him on the court. He's going to be a guy that I think very series to series and how much he plays. If they face off against the Bucks, that's a series where I think it's a very good Niang series, and one where you can find minutes where he's not as exploitable defensively. If you even throw him on like Brook Lopez as he lingers out by 3 and stuff like that, like, you can keep him on the court for far longer. In an ideal world, I would say the Sixers probably aren't as reliant on him as I think they are going to be in the stretch, but his shooting, he's really a real deal elite NBA shooter. Like, he's been in the top 25 3-point percentage throughout the entire season. He's looked better the more minutes he's gotten, which also is kind of surprising for a guy that was more or less a gamble when they signed him, that he had never played this extended amount. So good to see that. I do think Shake Milton's a guy on the outside looking in. I think the more Doc has kind of trended toward this, staggering the minutes of James Harden and Tyrese Maxey as your two guards rather than like going with a bench unit. Shake's kind of seen his minutes cut out. A little disappointing because I think it's been a pretty good year for Shake overall. I thought he's had some really nice moments, but I think the reasoning for this is the Sixers are a pretty small basketball team when you look at like teams around the NBA. I think instead of keeping two guards out, like we're talking about, if it's a Shake Milton with D'Anthony Melton, those are two guys under 6'4", which in today's NBA is small. So they're going to kind of overcome this with more wings, more Daniel House type players who just have a little more size, a little more athleticism, Jalen McDaniels, that kind of thing. So I do think Shake's the odd man out, and I don't think the rotation stems much deeper than that.
Yeah, I think that's fair because at the end of the day, I think you named probably 9 before Shake, right? 8 or 9 before Shake's name. We're not going to see a 10-man rotation. Probably won't even see a 9-man rotation. It'll be a House or Niang type of situation in a lot of cases as well. So I'm with you there. You touched on D'Anthony Melton and kind of, his chemistry with Tyrese Maxey. How impressed have you been with D'Anthony Melton? I think I've been a little bit even more impressed of late just because it seems like he's getting his athleticism back. It seems like that back is starting to loosen up a bit, and he's actually able to jump now, which it's great. You saw it last night. He grabbed like a board over Andre Drummond and then finished over somebody else with contact, and he flexed that. I love his personality. Like, how impressed have you been with D'Anthony Melton? And how important is it? I know we don't want to talk too far into the offseason, but how important is it for them to make sure that they get him extended this offseason?
Yeah, he's been awesome, and he's exceeded my expectations too. I've been a fan of D'Anthony Melton since college and his time at USC. It's impressive how much he's turned himself into just like pretty much the perfect player for what the Sixers need. Like he's
literally
that counterpart as far as he's more of a defensive oriented guy. He's a plus rebounder for his size, which is a big deal based on, like I mentioned, this is a smaller Sixers team. Guys like Maxey are never going to be super positive rebounders. Tobias isn't a natural rebounder for the most part. PJ Tucker, a little undersized, even though he plays bigger than he is. So having a guy like D'Anthony Melton that will go up and get it is a big deal. And defensively, he's going to be tasked with guarding some of these top perimeter threats come postseason time. And that's going to be a big deal. He's their best option for it. His shooting has been far above what I expected. Like
that's the biggest surprise, right?
Yeah. Super reliable. Has been all season too, and he's just comfortable off the catch and shoot. He can create a little bit. His finishing isn't great. Sometimes he gets a little out of control going to the basket, but some of that's just like some of that should be taken off his plate at times. That's for other people to do. But spot up shooting and playing defense, which is what we're asking from him, is great. He can play with just about anybody too, which is also a big deal. He's not one of these rotation pieces that is better paired with Harden or better paired with like anybody on the team. You can play D'Anthony Melton alongside. He's just like a hooper, a real deal basketball player that can fit along anything. And I love him. He's a joy on and off the court. And I definitely hope he's in Philly for the long haul.
I love what you said at the end there, calling him a hooper, because I think that's what the Sixers did with all of these additions, even all the way back to James Harden, like just getting somebody that people that appreciate the game of basketball, right? Like that love the sport. And, this is not to take shots at like Ben Simmons or anything like that, but just getting that type of vibe in the building, right? With PJ Tucker, with James Harden, D'Anthony Melton, right? Just pure hoopers. And he's like a Swiss Army knife. He's, like you said, he's willing to do whatever the Sixers need. And I think that's just such a huge thing for them to have added this offseason. I know I was sitting there. I believe it was the 21st pick that they traded for him, or maybe it was the 14th pick. I'm getting them confused here, along with Danny Green. It was the first round pick.
23rd, I believe. Yeah.
23rd pick with Danny Green in order to bring D'Anthony Melton in. And I remember I was going through like draft prospects. There's nothing that we could have added in the draft, in my opinion, at 23 that would have fulfilled the role that D'Anthony Melton is fulfilling right now. So I think that's been huge. You talked about him and kind of his role, playing with Harden, playing with Maxey. It doesn't really matter. I want to switch gears and talk a little bit about James Harden here. Obviously, we had a little bit of a scare, in my opinion, with the injury reports switching from sore foot to sore Achilles. His play has been great, though, aside from the injury concerns going into the playoffs. I first want to know, how impressed have you been with James Harden and his play this year? Has he met your expectations, exceeded them, fell below them? And then along with that, how concerned are you as far as his health going into the playoffs?
Yeah, as far as the season as a whole, he's exceeded my expectations. Harden's been everything I could have hoped for and more this year. I personally was a little bit skeptical coming into the season if it was all due to the hamstring, the lack of burst and issues that he had last year. There was a good part of me that was kind of thinking like, maybe this is just him slowing down. He's 33 years old, not getting any younger. We know that he hasn't been the guy to take care of his body to the greatest extent at times. But yeah, that was all wrong. He took it seriously. He got in shape. He's got a different shake, a different separation ability that he just didn't have last year with the Sixers. And that's been the biggest thing for me. The passing has been as advertised, if not better. I mean, we have seen Joel take these strides. James Harden's a big reason for him just creating easy points for him on entry passes, off pick and roll. These are just easy looks that Joel has never had in years past. And that is a credit to Harden, and just the gravity that he still has as far as commanding two defenders, sometimes 30 feet from the basket, creating looks for others. And he can still go get one. He's shooting the best 3-point percentage of his career this year, which is crazy. Shooting over 40% from three, which he has never done. So yeah, he's been everything I could have hoped for and more. As far as the injury front, I hope the Sixers are walking this fine line, kind of balancing.
All speculation from our part, right? Like, there's just no way to know.
Right. We don't know what he's dealing with. He definitely was bothered by that issue. It was very clear on the court. He was way more passive than we've seen him all year. And that was my frustration. I guess I'm almost like a little relieved to see there was an injury going on, that there was something bothering him, because he just looked very disinterested. He was playing off ball. He was basically giving the keys to the offense to Maxey, which can be done for stretches, but this offense is built for James Harden to be the quarterback of, and to pull the strings, call the plays, make the decisions, everything along those lines. So I was happy to kind of see that they're addressing it. Happy he got a night off last night. As much as it's important to go for seeding right now, like it doesn't matter if Joel Embiid and James Harden are not themselves come playoff time. So that should be the focus. It's been positive indications coming out of the Sixers, but that should be the priority, is making sure that is the case.
Yeah, you got to make sure you get Harden to the playoffs and healthy. I completely agree with you. To your point about his play, I thought it was interesting because even last night, you just see some of the passing, and it was just for a short stint between Maxey and Embiid, and it's just Harden makes it look like it's so easy to get the ball to Embiid that you sit there and you think Maxey should be able to do this too. It's Embiid, but really it is Harden's passing ability that makes this offense flow so seamlessly. Now, mind you, they moved the ball around really well last night as a team, but just looking at Maxey in those pick and roll situate, he's just not even close to the passer that Harden is right now. Of course, that's something he can work on, but a lot of that stuff comes from natural ability, which Harden. His IQ, there's so much that goes into his game because he's not the most athletic, right? So there's a lot of brain and skill that go into his game, and that's why I kind of appreciate even more. You mentioned Embiid. Obviously, the calf. Let me start there. The calf tightness. Is it more calf tightness last night, or is it more score last night? Just from your perception, I know once again it's speculation. But from your perspective, do you think it was more calf tightness or more they're up by 25 at half, they don't need him?
Yeah, it's definitely both. It's definitely like if this is a playoff game, like he comes out of halftime for sure. It was just weird watching that game, like the process of how things happen. Like
him didn't come back on the court.
Yeah, he didn't come back on the court, didn't come back to the bench, and it just wasn't addressed. Like listening to the broadcast, Kate Scott and Ala, like they're put in a tough spot here, but they just mentioned and Paul Reed out here starting for the second half, and it's like, well, why is that? Like we're gonna just brush over why the potential MVP of the league. Yeah, we just whatever. So I do think there was something going on. I think it's probably a nick, something that's been bothering him for a while. He just kind of opted, all right, we're up 30. Let me get treatment on this right now. I would have appreciated a little more, like, just come clean. Let's be open with everybody about what's going on, because there's just the meltdown that was going on Sixers Twitter about speculation and whatever it is. But yeah, I do think he's fine. All the indications have been positive coming out, but same kind of idea with Harden, where the priority must be to make sure he's healthy. Embiid, I think, has a little extra pressure and a little extra strain because of this MVP race that's coming up in these key games down the stretch. So I hope they take care of it. I hope he's all good. I would like a more concrete kind of answer from the Sixers pretty soon.
We should know by tomorrow, which would be today when this is airing, but nonetheless, just a precursor, guys. This is filmed on Thursday, but Friday we do play the Warriors, I believe, in Golden State, right? So if he plays, we know that he is he should be good to go at that point. But moving on from the injury, just looking at Embiid this season, obviously he's moved as the favorite, for MVP, of course. What are some areas that you've seen personally that you feel that Embiid has improved on in this season? And then just to add on to that, is he your MVP? And ultimately, what would he have to do, if not, or if he is, to solidify that case throughout the last 8 games here or so?
Yeah, I know I've have some bias shading me here, but Joel Embiid's absolutely my MVP. And as far as what he's done better this year, there's just kind of a maturity and like a processing that think he's taken strides forward. And there's been times in years past where we've seen him get frustrated, and there's almost like a stubbornness to like, well, I'm better at you at this. Like, I'm going to score this way, that kind of thing. It doesn't feel that way this year. It's like he's more content to get the read, look at what the defense is bringing at him, and just figure out like, all right, what way am I going to beat this, or how am I going to score off this? And he does. He executes more often than not. The elbow shot has been pretty much transformative to his career. And for this is also a credit to Doc Rivers, because this has come underneath him, and also a credit to Joel Embiid for working on this, for getting better at this. Because coming into the league, like, he was not a guy known for his touch or his shooting form or ever. He was a guy who defensively was off the charts, a terrific just big man with the frame, the ability, but he was not like a electric shooter or whatever. And I would argue he's up there among the most elite shooters as a big man ever. And just his ability to walk into that mid-range jumper opens up everything, because there's just no way to guard that. A guy that tall being able to shoot over whoever he wants.
It's very KD-like, right? Like,
yeah, absolutely. Very KD-like.
Unstoppable.
And the reason that the elbow is so special is it's the hardest place on the floor to double. So when you drop him on the post and do that, you can kind of take him away before the ball even gets there, versus when you're at the elbow and play through him there, you can't without opening up the just open shot for somebody else. And that's a big deal. That's a reason why this has worked so well. And I do think it's just like his maturity, his IQ of the game. He's putting it all together, and it's just worked. This has been the most impressive stretch of basketball I've ever seen anyone play. And it's been amazing, especially of late.
Yeah, no, I think that's very well said. And I think the maturity aspect is the biggest thing as well, especially from the playmaking standpoint. I remember at the beginning of the season, and it's almost like he's getting better as the season has gone on as well, because I remember at the beginning of the season when they played the Milwaukee Bucks, it was maybe I think it was the second game of the year, right after they started out 0-2, lost to the Celtics, lost to the Bucks to start the season. You look at that game, and I remember talking to, I think it was Dylan that was on the show with me, but I remember saying to him, I wish, sometimes when Embiid's being doubled, if the defense is crashing down on him, just have your head up looking for your teammate, because there's going to be wide open guys, right? I thought that would be the next level to Embiid's game. Obviously, he's gotten better over the years as a passer, but just making that a focal point of his game, not to a Jokic level, but 4 assists. I mean, that's solid for your center, right? Like, that's a good passing center, in my opinion. It doesn't have to be extravagant up at 10 assists like Jokic, but I think that's the difference that I've seen with him, especially just as simple as last night. He got off to a great start. I think he had 7 assists in the first half. He's talked about, while Harden being out, it allows him to emphasize his playmaking ability. But when Harden's in there, he doesn't have to do it, right? And I think that's a level of maturity, right? Like, not wanting, like you said, I can do this better than you. I can make better than Harden. He understands that he can, and it's good. It would be irrational to think the other way, but I think that's just a level of maturity in trust in your teammates. Obviously, it's Harden, one of the top 75 players of all time, but he's nonetheless trusting his teammates to take some of that responsibility off his shoulders. So I think it's been really impressive. In my mind, Sean, he's up there as like, I'm thinking like KD level scorer. Like, he can score at all levels. He's shooting the 3 ball, I think, the best in his career, if not up there in the ranks of the best of his career. I mean, he's shooting the ball so efficiently from the mid range. Like you said, those elbow jumpers, they just feel automatic at this point. I have no nerves when Embiid goes up and takes that shot, like against Portland, right? He hits that game winning dagger from the elbow area, and it feels like it's a layup at that point for him. So that speaks to what Embiid's been able to do. But a little bit of a follow-up question to that. What does he have to do, in your opinion, to solidify his MVP award for this season? Because obviously, even though the sports books tend to know a little bit more than everybody else, even though they say he is the favorite, it's not fully wrapped up yet, and he does have some big games down the stretch. What do you want to see from him just to lock that up?
And real quick on the playmaking thing, Joel said something cool the other night where he was kind of asked about it, and he said like I can be a playmaker when I want to. I just don't need to because I play next to the best playmaker in the game, which when he took James Harden there, and he's right about that. Like even look at last night without Harden on the floor, in 16 minutes, Joel ending with 12, 7, and 7. Like come on now, like that's ridiculous stuff. And we see him running the break, doing the yo-yo dribble, and hitting Daniel House and streaking. It's like this is unbelievable. So there really is just some nutty stuff. Some step forward that he's taken. And as far as the MVP, you kind of mentioned it. There's some big games down the stretch here, and I don't want to put too much pressure and say it's ultimately going to decide it. But I mean, Monday night head-to-head, Embiid versus Jokic is going to be a big deal. Everyone's going to be watching that game. Also facing off Giannis a couple days later. Both those games are going to hold a lot of weight. We saw Joel give Jokic 47 right in his face in Philly. If he can walk into Denver and give him a similar effort, I mean, I think the red carpet is laid for him to collect that trophy right now. That's definitely easier said than done than just walking and doing that. There's going to be a heavy focus on shutting him down. But yeah, I think the biggest thing that could prevent him from getting it is missed games. If there start to be too much of Embiid resting, depending on what's going on with the calf, and then those matchups are going to go a long way in deciding who voters end up going with. So this is a big stretch for him, a big stretch for the Sixers, but it's definitely well within reach, and he's closer than I think he's ever been for it.
Yeah, I think that's a great point there, just that you ended with this being the closest he's ever been, because I don't think it's been this late in the season, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on the first. There's been a 3-year series here where Embiid's been in MVP conversations now. In the first year, I believe it was closer down the stretch, but it still fell away from him down the stretch, and it started leaning Jokic's way. This is as deep as he's been, especially being the leader, right, in the MVP race. So I just really like you said, health comes first, priorities, right? We need to make sure he's healthy going into the playoffs. But I want him to win it so bad at this point. There was a point during this season where I just decided not to care anymore about the MVP award, because it was getting tiring, right? The narrative-driven reporting in the media and stuff. But now that he's starting to get the recognition, it's like I really want it to come full circle for him. I know he may not even care about it, but I want it to come full circle for him because he deserves recognition for not only this season, but the last 2 seasons as well. He's just been out of this world. It's been ridiculous. And obviously Jokic is a hell of a player, right? But at the end of the day, you gotta pass some of this recognition around when guys are virtually playing at the same level, even though I do believe Embiid's playing at a higher level nonetheless. But I really need him to get this. I really do. I want him to get it.
And as much as he gives the right answers that it's about winning, he's not focused on it. There's definitely a huge part of him that would love to.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, when you're a competitor at this level, you have to be like an elite competitor and a guy who wants to win so bad or wants to prove you're better than everybody so bad. That comes with wanting to win these awards, and especially when you earn him in the way that he does. I mean, we're talking about this is a guy who led the NBA in scoring last year and now averages 3 more points per game this year than he did last year. And while doing everything he does on the defensive end, over 10 rebounds a game, improved as a passer. He's the man. He's absolutely one of the most impressive talents I've ever seen on a basketball court. And yeah, he deserves it. Yeah. He's every bit the same level as any superstar you mentioned around the NBA, if not higher than most of them. So I hope he gets it. He definitely deserves it. And it would be a nice just like statement for him and for Philadelphia, man.
I agree. That would be coming full circle, I would believe. Now, obviously, getting out of the second round, that would be full circle as well. Yeah. But we're not there yet. We're coming to the end of the regular season, so hopefully he gets the recognition for this. Last question before I get you out of here, man. I know we're running up on the 30-minute mark here. Who is the biggest X factor for this Sixers team as we approach the playoffs? And let's just take out the health factor, right? Let's say Harden and Embiid are fully healthy going into the playoffs. Who is the biggest X factor that you see on this team going into the postseason? And where do you predict, as of right now, the Sixers landed? Do you think they finish with the 3rd seed or the 2nd seed? First seed's a little maybe out of reach, but maybe the 2nd seed. Where do you feel there?
Yeah, I do think they end with the 3rd seed, unfortunately. Celtics have a little bit easier path to finish the season than the Sixers do. Just a tough stretch to end, so tough to make up much ground. The head-to-head will obviously matter, but I think there's just a pretty good chance the Sixers drop 1 or 2 games before that kind of put them a little bit behind the 8 ball there. As far as the X factor for playoffs, I still think it's James Harden, even health aside. Whatever version of him is out there, I feel confident in we know what we're going to get with Joel Embiid at this point. We know who he is as a player, what he's going to bring, but as we've seen in years past, like it can't be a one-man effort come postseason time. There's going to be stretches where James Harden has to carry a load, be that guy, and he's going to have to create for himself. I mean, I get he was injured. I get he wasn't himself, but this is the same guy who shot twice in game 7 or in game 6 in that elimination game of the Heat. So they can't have that. They have to have a guy that is capable of creating for himself, doing his own thing, and being that true co-star to Joel Embiid. So for me, it's James Harden. And assuming that he is healthy, everything goes well, I feel a lot better heading into this playoffs than I did last year.
Yeah, I love that you pointed that out, because I think, the Embiid struggles in the playoffs, I feel it gets overblown, because if you look at him in the first series last postseason, he balled out, right? Like up until he breaks his face, and then he's not going to play against one of the better defensive teams in the NBA with a broken face and obliged vision, right? He can't freaking see out of one eye. So I think he catches almost a little bit of unfair criticism for those struggles in the second round. But nonetheless, I do think James Harden's going to be a big piece, if not the biggest piece to this puzzle. Obviously, you have guys like Tobias, who we haven't talked about much, but you know that you're not going to get a superstar level Tobias. You're not going to get that max contract Tobias, right? Yeah. Maxey, we've seen what Maxey can do in the playoffs, but I think James Harden is really that wild card. Is he going to be efficient, right? I think that's the biggest thing. Is are his legs going to still be there in the playoffs? So we'll find out shortly enough. That is all I got for you today, Sean. I know you got to get going here. But thank you once again for joining me on the show. I hope to get you back, hopefully, right around when the playoffs are starting, just to do a nice little preview there. But nonetheless, I appreciate you coming on, man. Everybody give Sean a follow on Twitter at Sean_Barnard1. And then, of course, Sean, if you just want to plug Pick Swap Media and everything that you're doing one more time before I get you out of here.
Yeah, absolutely. Always a pleasure, Scotty. Appreciate you for having me on once again. And would love to come back for playoffs. That would be awesome. Appreciate all you guys for tuning in. You can follow me on Twitter at Sean_Barnard1. Check out Pick Swap Media on YouTube. Drop a subscribe there and all the socials, Pick Swap Media. Check that out. That's the biggest thing. There'll be plenty of content coming out ahead of the playoffs. And appreciate you all.
Awesome. Guys, be sure to follow Sean on Twitter. That's where you'll find all of his content dropping nonetheless. And you can go from there. But thank you once again, Sean. Guys, that's going to be it for this interview with Sean Barnard. Stick around for the second part of the episode. We'll hit power rankings, best bets for the Friday night slate. For now, peace. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the second half, the second segment of this episode of Scotty Talks NBA. Of course, I hope you enjoyed the interview with my good buddy, Sean Barnard. Be sure to give him a follow on Twitter at Sean_Barnard1. But shout out to Sean for joining the show. Of course, I promised you I would get back to you guys with this second half, getting you the updated power rankings report. We'll get to the Friday night slate. I'll give you my picks for the night. We'll go over the injuries that we're looking at for the slate. And then I'll give you my 3 very early in the day best bets. These odds are as of 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on DraftKings Sportsbook. So we're going to get to all of this. It'll be a pretty quick segment, about 15 minutes. Let's get started now. Got my power rankings pulled up here for you. Shout out to my content designer, KC, the entertainer, right? You can find him on Twitter, but be sure to check out all of our stuff on Twitter at DSM_Media. KC puts out some great work. Shout out to him for this graphic here. Nonetheless, let's get started. We'll start from the bottom. We got the Miami Heat coming in at number 10. This is my 10th ranked team in the NBA right now. They're 40-34 on the season. They are currently the 6th seed in the East. I believe right behind the Knicks. So they're right there in the mix in the Eastern Conference. And the Heat have been playing much, much better right now. I wanted to fact check myself. Yes, they did move ahead of the Brooklyn Nets. They are 6th in the East right now. They're 7-3 in their last 10, and they actually have won 2 straight. They take on the Brooklyn Nets tomorrow night, Saturday night, that is. And that's going to be an opportunity for them to further separate themselves from that 7 seed, from that play-in tournament, which I think is a big thing for the Miami Heat. Another key point here, it does slot them right up against their second-round matchup from last postseason, which was the Philadelphia 76ers in the playoffs. I know as a Sixers fan personally, I would like to see Miami move down back to that 7 seed because I don't think the Sixers are going to get up to the 2 seed by the end of this season. Nonetheless, if that's the first-round matchup, that's the first-round matchup. Heat are my 10th ranked team in the NBA this week. Next, we have the New York Knicks. The New York Knicks have not been playing their best ball of late, but they're still in my top 10. They have lost 3 straight. I know they're 4-6 in their last 10. Like I said, they're not playing their best ball, but they just got Jalen Brunson back. They got to get him reintegrated, get the chemistry back, and I think they can start. They can pick up right where they left off right before he got injured. Nonetheless, they take on the Houston Rockets on Monday, so they get a whole weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, to figure it out and get things right before they take on that young Rockets team. Next, we have the Phoenix Suns at 38-34. They've lost 2 in a row. They're 5-5 in their last 10. They play at Sacramento tonight. You'll see later. That's actually a big game on my slate for you guys, but nonetheless, I had to put the Suns at 8. Had to move them down quite a bit. Obviously, no KD right now. We don't know if we're going to see him before the playoffs, but also no DeAndre Ayton. So there is big hole in scoring, rebounding without those two out there. And then obviously the haul that they gave up with for KD, right? So a lot of holes, a lot of shoes to fill for this Phoenix team. Nonetheless, they take on Sacramento tonight. That's going to be the late night matchup. There's actually a few late night matchups tonight. That's going to be an interesting game. Suns have to stay in the mix, right? They have to get wins to stay in the mix over there in the West. Right now, they're the 4 seed. They are just a game more played, or a game less played than the LA Clippers. So all it takes is the Clippers to get one more win, and they're going to move ahead of the Phoenix Suns in the standings, which would then slot the Suns. They are 1 game out of the 6 seed. They are 2 games out of the 7 seed. So they need to pick up some wins here shortly if they don't want to see themselves in that play-in tournament nonetheless. Next, we have the Sacramento Kings at 43-29. Right now, the Kings are the 3rd seed in the Western Conference. They have lost 2 in a row nonetheless. Fairly good competition. The other night, they lost to the Jazz. That was the one that you don't want to give up. But the recent loss was to the Celtics, so you'll take that one nonetheless. But tonight, I look for them to get back on the knot against the struggling Phoenix Suns team. Let's be honest. The Kings of late, they are 6-4 in their last 10, so not everything is so bad. This team is good, though. This duo of De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis, they're healthy, they're looking good, and they bring a lot of firepower around them with guys like Malik Monk, Terrence Davis, guys that can shoot the laces off the ball. Davion Mitchell is another just kind of like that pit bull terrier out front that plays defense. Can shoot the rock as well. So I really love what the Kings are doing. They have a very deep squad, but De'Aaron Fox and Sabonis leading the way out there in the West. Number 6, we have the Cleveland Cavaliers. Obviously, they're 47-28. They're 4th in the Eastern Conference. It's probably where they're going to stay, but they have solidified themselves as a top 4 Eastern Conference team nonetheless. That backcourt duo with Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell, you just got to make sure all of those guys are healthy getting into the playoffs. Jared Allen, right? Evan Mobley, make sure those guys are good to go. And then they just need contributions from their bench, right? Guys like Cedi Osman, Dean Wade, Isaac Okoro. Obviously, he doesn't come off the bench all the time. He's usually starting at the small forward spot, but they need other guys to step up down the stretch, and I think they'll have that. Nonetheless, they got the 4 seed in the East locked up, and it's a very competitive, right, Eastern Conference that we're working with right now. So shout out to the Cavs. They've won 3 in a row of late, so they're playing some of their best ball lately. 8-2 in their last 10, and they take on the Houston Rockets on Sunday. That's their next matchup. Number 5, we got the Memphis Grizzlies. They've moved up a good bit here because they've been one of the hotter teams in the NBA. They're sitting at 45-27. They are currently the 2 seed in the Western Conference. They've locked up their playoff spot. And they actually get Ja Morant back tonight. So that is a huge, huge upgrade for them. They're still waiting on Steven Adams, obviously, to come back from his injury. That's going to be the final piece to complete them before playoffs. But nonetheless, they've won 4 in a row right now. They're 7-3 in their last 10. And they actually get the young Houston Rockets tonight. So several of these teams in the top 10. Rockets have a tough schedule coming up from the looks of it here. But nonetheless, Grizzlies, number 2 seed in the West. They are the number 5 team in the NBA for me right now. Who knows? With that Ja boost, him coming back, you may see this team rise very shortly. Number 4 coming in is the Denver Nuggets, 49-24 in the season, the number 1 seed in the Western Conference. They're starting to get a little bit of a groove back here. They've won 2 in a row. They're 5-5 in their last 10, so that's not great, breaking even. And they actually take on the Milwaukee Bucks tomorrow in Denver. And then they get the Philadelphia 76ers on Monday. So nothing's easing up for the Nuggets. They get 2 of the top 3 teams in the Eastern Conference in their upcoming schedule. Nonetheless, you got to give them credit for what they've accomplished this season. They're still holding on to that number 1 spot in the West. Number 3, this is where it gets interesting. I have the Boston Celtics. There's going to be a lot of people that disagree with that. I understand it. They have 1 more win than the Sixers. They're 50-23 right now. They've won 1 in a row. They're 5-5 in their last 10. That's the key right there. They're not playing as good as the Sixers are right now. Nonetheless, they do have 1 more win. They are the 2 seed, and their schedule, the remaining schedule for the Celtics, is going to be much, much easier. I expect them to jump back above the Sixers just because they're going to be able to get some chemistry going against weaker competition. They're going to be able to play better and get right before the playoffs. The Sixers are going to run into a grueling part of the schedule when you have Joel Embiid. He's a down and out right now. We don't know what the status is of him being questionable for tonight's game with the Warriors. You have Harden, who's questionable tonight for tonight's game against the Warriors. They head on the road tomorrow night again against the Phoenix Suns, and then Monday night against the Denver Nuggets and Jokic. So tough schedule coming up for the Sixers, a little bit easier for the Celtics, who have the Pacers tonight. Nonetheless, I can't put them ahead of the Sixers right now for the reasons above. The Sixers are 9-1 in their last 10. They're just playing better basketball. They've had a tough schedule, the toughest schedule in the NBA since All-Star break, and it's only going to get tougher. If they can come out of this only 1 or 2 games behind Boston Celtics, that is a good outcome for this Sixers team. The main thing, hold on to that 3rd seed so you can make sure you have home court advantage as far as possible as far as you get into the playoffs. Nonetheless, we have the Bucks at number 1. They're 52-20, number 1 team in the NBA, number 1 team in the Eastern Conference. They've won 2 in a row. They're 7-3 in their last 10, and they take on the Utah Jazz tonight. Obviously, Giannis is playing out of his mind. He's in the MVP convo. Embiid's in the MVP convo. Jokic is in the MVP convo. It's going to come down to this final week or 2 in these matchups head-to-head. Who's going to take this MVP award? So big games coming up. This is my top 10 power rankings as of right now. I'm truly interested on you guys' thoughts, who you would move up. Is there anybody missing from this top 10 list? Let me know in the comments, guys. But this is going to be the top 10. Just rounding it off one more time. The Miami Heat at 10, New York Knicks at 9, Phoenix Suns at 8, Sacramento Kings at 7, the Cleveland Cavaliers at 6, Memphis Grizzlies at 5, Nuggets at 4, Celtics at 3, Sixers at 2, Bucks, number 1 team in the NBA as of right now. Let's get to the Friday night slate. Going to run through the injury report very quickly between each game here that we have listed. So we have the Indiana Pacers visiting the Boston Celtics tonight. You have the Boston Celtics 12-point favorite, 11.5-point favorite. Depends which book, which site you look on. Nonetheless, over double-digit favorite tonight. No Tyrese Halliburton. He's out tonight. Chris Duarte is questionable. Boston Celtics, good to go. Nonetheless, I got the Celtics taking this one at home. This should be a pretty simple one for them. And they need to win as many games as they can right now to hold on to that 2 seed, potentially get that 1 seed back, right? Next, we have the Detroit Pistons at the Toronto Raptors. As of right now, the Toronto Raptors are 14.5-point favorites against the Pistons at home. You have Scotty Barnes, Precious Achiuwa, Gary Trent Jr., all questionable for this game. For the Pistons, you have Isaiah Stewart, Alec Burks, Bogdanovich, and McGruder. They are all out. Excuse me, I had to burp there. They are all out for the Pistons tonight. You have Jalen Duren, who is questionable for the Pistons. I'm going to go with the Raptors in this one. That's a high spread. I don't know if I would expect them to cover that spread, especially if some of the guys that are questionable for Toronto are out. But nonetheless, I do have Toronto winning this game. Next, we have the Spurs at the Wizards. Obviously, the Wizards are 8-point favorites at home. In this one, we have Devin Vassell, and Zach Collins for the San Antonio Spurs. They're both questionable for this one. Trey Jones, Doug McDermott, Keldon Johnson, and Devontae Graham are all probable for the Spurs. Jeremy Sochan, Romeo Langford, and Charles Bassey are all out. And then for the Wizards, Kyle Kuzma and Bradley Beal are also out. I'm going to go with the Wizards in this one. This is not a game that you're going to want to watch, especially with Beal and Kuzma being out on Washington's side. Going to go with the Wizards. I think they just have a better team, considering that the Spurs are considering not playing almost all of their regular rotation. They're obviously tanking right now. It's apparent what the Spurs are doing. Nonetheless, they're going to be trying to lose this game. I'm going to take the Wizards, and they most likely will cover the spread even without Kuz and Beal. Next, we have the Rockets at the Grizzlies. Grizzlies 13-point favorites in this one up against the Rockets tonight. Nonetheless, for the Rockets, you have Frank Kaminsky, who's questionable. Jayshawn Tate is out. Ja Morant is back for the Grizzlies. I can't wait to see what he's looking like against the Rockets tonight. Nonetheless, I'm taking the Grizzlies at home tonight with the boost of having Ja Morant back. The Rockets aren't going to be much of a match, although the spread is interesting. I would probably go for the Rockets to cover the spread, given they just played a couple nights ago and they only lost by 5 to this team. But should be a different beast, a little bit of a boost with Ja Morant back. We'll see how that one goes. Nonetheless, I'm taking the Grizzlies. Next, we have the Charlotte Hornets at the Dallas Mavericks. Mavs are a 14.5-point favorite in this one. You have Kyrie Irving and Tim Hardaway Jr., who are both questionable for Dallas. Kelly Oubre and Dennis Smith Jr., who are questionable for Charlotte. I'm going to go with the Mavs in this one. It's a widespread once again. Charlotte, if they sit some of these guys that are questionable here, they don't stand much of a chance to a Mavs team that's fighting to get into the playoffs right now. I'll go Mavs in this one. Next, we have the Bucks at Jazz. The Bucks are 9-point favorites at this one. No Chris Middleton tonight. No Jay Crowder for Milwaukee. No Lauri Markkanen. No Rudy Gay. No Colin Sexton. No Jordan Clarkson for the Utah Jazz. I'm going Milwaukee in this one on the road. Next, we have the Sixers at Warriors. Warriors are a 5.5-point favorite in this one. Nonetheless, Embiid, Harden, McDaniels, Jalen McDaniels, that is, are all questionable for this one. It's going to be huge in the difference deciding who's going to win this game, whether 2 of those 3 players play, right? Warriors are fairly healthy. Just no Andrew Wiggins tonight. Obviously, Andre Iguodala had the recent injury, but he wasn't playing much anyways. Warriors, 5.5-point favorites tonight. I'm going to go with the Warriors as of right now. They're fully healthy. This is their first game at home in 5 games. They played 5 straight games on the road. They're going to be happy to be home in their comfort zone. I got the Warriors taking it at home. They're a much better team at home as well, as you guys should know. Next, we got the Bulls at the Blazers. In this one for Portland, you have Anthony Simons and Jeremy Grant, who are both out. Dame Lillard is probable. You have Nazir Little and Yusuf Nurkic, both questionable for this one. On Chicago's side, you have Caruso and DeMar DeRozan, questionable. And Javonte Green probable for this matchup. I'm going to go with the Bulls on the road. They played the Sixers tough on the first part of that doubleheader that they had back-to-back games against each other. Second one, they got taken advantage of. Philly dominated that game. I look for the Bulls to bounce back against a dwindled down Portland Trailblazers team tonight. Finally, we got the last 2 matchups of the night. We have the Phoenix Suns at the Sacramento Kings. I mentioned to you guys this is one of my bigger games of the night. Because there's some best bets involved in this game. Nonetheless, Sacramento is a 3.5-point favorite in this one at home. You have DeAndre Ayton and Kevin Durant, who are out for the Phoenix Suns. Kevin Huerter, who is out for the Sacramento Kings. I'm going with the Kings in this one. I do like them to cover. The Suns just aren't playing their best right now. They're missing 2 of their stars, 2 of their highest leading scorers, right? And they're just not playing very well on the road, especially right now. Going to go with the Kings in that one. Then finally, to end the night, we have the Oklahoma City Thunder at the LA Lakers. Lakers are 5.5-point favorites right now. AD is probable for this game. Aside from that, everybody's pretty much good to go on both sides. Both of these teams are fighting for a play-in spot right now. The Lakers and Oklahoma City. Lakers are the 9th seed. Oklahoma City is on the outside looking in at the 11th seed right now. They're right behind the New Orleans Pelicans. So they're a half game back. Excuse me, no, they're not a game back of the Lakers or New Orleans right now. So if they can get this W tonight against the Lakers, they can scoot on ahead of the Lakers in the Western Conference standings. I look for the Thunder to do that tonight. It'll be interesting to see if AD plays. I'm going to take the Thunder on the road against the Lakers, cover that 5.5 spread. Not only that, but win this game. I like what the Thunder are doing this year, and I'm really rooting for them to get into the postseason. So nonetheless, run through the matchups one more time for you guys with my picks. I got Boston Celtics in Indianapolis. I have the Wizards winning at home. I have the Raptors winning at home. I have the Grizzlies winning at home. Mavs winning at home. Bucks winning on the road against the Jazz. Warriors winning at home as of right now with Embiid and Harden in the air. Bulls at Trailblazers. I'm going to take the Bulls on the road. Suns at Kings. I'm going to go Kings at home. And then Thunder at Lakers. I'm taking the Oklahoma City Thunder on the road against the LA Lakers. It's going to be a big matchup to end the night. Finally, last segment of the show here, guys. We have the best bets for the Friday night slate. These odds are as of 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on DraftKings Sportsbook. So first up, you see it. I told you guys there's going to be some plays from that game tonight. We have De'Aaron Fox over 1.5 threes at -130. Not as much juice as the other plays, right? But we have to have a safe play mixed in here. You talk about safe. De'Aaron Fox has hit this mark 6 out of his last 7 games. He's not known throughout his career as a three-point shooter. He's getting much, much better this season. He puts up a lot more three-point attempts, but nonetheless, of late, he's been shooting the rock pretty well, and he's been hitting this mark regularly. Next, we have Steph Curry over 4.5 threes. I had to take this one. I told you guys it doesn't matter. It didn't hit the last time I put it on my best bet slip. It doesn't matter. If it's in plus money territory, I'm taking Steph Curry over 4.5 threes at +110. This is his first home game out of the last 6 games that they played, right? They played 5 straight on the road. I look for Steph Curry to be happy to be back home. I look for him to be ready to get a nice, important win for the Golden State Warriors. Like I said, Warriors need wins to stay in the playoff situation right now. Steph Curry's going to do his best to make that happen tonight. I have Steph Curry starting out hot tonight at home over 4.5 threes. And then finally, we'll bring it back to the Sacramento and Phoenix game. I'm going with the Sacramento Kings spread, -3.5 at -110. You look at the Sacramento Kings. This is a team that plays much better at home. This is a team that can score the basketball with that duo of De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis. I think no KD, no DeAndre Ayton for the Phoenix Suns. They're on the road. It's not going to end well for this team. How are they going to be able to match the scoring output of the Sacramento Kings? I just don't see it happening tonight, guys. I'm going to take the Kings with the spread there. Nonetheless, just some more context to that pick. Phoenix Suns are 0-6 against the spread in their last 6 games. So they have not covered the spread in their last 6 matchups. They're also 15-22 on the road, so they don't play well on the road either, guys. Those are going to be the best bets of the night. De'Aaron Fox over 1.5 threes, Steph Curry over 4.5 threes, and Sacramento Kings -3.5. Let's see green tonight. Let's hit all 3. That's what I'm hoping for. Like I tell you guys every single time with the best bets, I lay them all individually for whatever unit you're comfortable with, right? And then a little bit less on a parlay of them all together. Once again, whatever unit you're comfortable with. That way, when we go 3 for 3, as we do sometimes here, you'll get the full reap of rewards, right? Nonetheless, that's all I got for you guys for this episode of Scotty Talks NBA. I appreciate you all tuning in. Until next time, we'll be back next Friday, same time, same place, 5 p.m. here on DSM Media's YouTube channel. Be sure to hit that subscribe button on the YouTube channel. That's where we're trying to grow the most. But be sure to also check us out on Twitter at DSM_media. Check out the link tree. It'll tab you to our TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all of the above. T-Public, you can check out some of our merch. Nonetheless, guys, thank you for tuning in. Let's cash some tickets tonight and enjoy some NBA basketball, guys. I hope you enjoyed the Sean Barnard interview as well. Until next time, go Sixes. Peace.